Hey everybody, good evening. No music. I'm always banned from music, but good evening. Thank you so much for joining me. Tonight I'm looking down here because I want to start by tuning in into CNN because Pete Buttigieg is going to review the most recent interview that Kamala Harris gave today on Fox News. Now, it's a stretch to call it an interview because Brad Baer or whatever his name is, he was interrupting. He would not let Vice President Harris even speak, not even for 60 seconds. And so I want to, first and foremost, together watch how Pete Buttigieg is going to dissect it and comment on it because we do all love him and we appreciate his opinion. So let's take a look. Let me tune in CNN and let's see what he would have to say on it. Now,
And in fact, if you listen to Donald, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within. And
so let's see when Pete is coming through. I would love to hear his opinion. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to watch it. But the clips are everywhere, so it was very hateful from the get go. He would ask a question and then scream over, and then he would show her those clickbaity little snippets as to what she had said before. So that was kind of trippy. So let's see when Pete is appearing. Then I'm going to tune the sound on, and then we will certainly continue with our actual news. But I wanted to have his opinion since we're going live at the same time. I wanted to kind of have this sort of a watch party moment together with you. Let's check the comments real quick. Long time no see. Oh, exactly. Yes, we just saw each other a couple of hours ago. Yes, Collins is talking about it right now. So let's tune into this part, and then we will continue watching. We will continue with actual news right away. So let me tune the sound.
peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the president of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it.
I want you to see for yourself regarding what Harris is saying there about the clip that they played of Trump. Fox chose to air only Trump's defense of his threats to use the military against United States citizens.
Good point.
But this is what Trump actually originally had to say.
Good point, Shannon.
I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
My lead source tonight is Pete Buttigieg, here, I should note, in his personal capacity as a surrogate for the Harris campaign. Thank you so much for being here. I mean, you introduced yourself at the Democratic National Convention by saying, I'm Pete Buttigieg. You might recognize me from Fox News. You're a frequent guest on that network. What were your thoughts on this interview tonight?
Well, it was really impressive on her part. She was tough, smart, focused, disciplined, the same qualities that made her a very effective prosecutor, and I think are going to make her a very effective president. And she did it in territory that's obviously not ideologically friendly. I think she'd have many reasons to think twice about whether she was going to get fair treatment on Fox News. But even as they were interrupting her, preventing her from speaking, she got her point across, and she called out things like that moment, that exchange that we just saw, where they attempted to sidestep the shocking fact of someone wanting to be president, calling Americans the enemy from within. And I think it's especially appropriate, actually, for her to do that on Fox, because, when I think about conservatives, Republicans that I know, one of the things that's that I'm most sympathetic to about what sincere conservatives care about is a passion for liberty and a real concern about making sure that liberty is protected. Now, I disagree with a lot of Republican friends who think that, that goes so far that, enforcing the Clean Water Act isn't something we should do because it just might impinge on liberty. But these are the exact folks who need to be reminded about the implications for a freedom-loving country if the next president of the United States is somebody who has flirted with, more than flirted with, talked about turning the military on American citizens who he disagrees with politically. And I think there are a lot of folks at home, maybe conservative Republicans or independents who lean right, who are thinking to themselves, you know, if you've got a friend or a coworker or a daughter who is more politically to the left than you are, is she going to be safe in a country where the president of the United States calls her the enemy?
Well, I mean, in that interview, as she was making that argument about what Trump has said about the military, the National Guard, and using it against U.S. citizens, I mean, when you see that moment there and how she responded about the clip that was played, you know, she's been in politics for a long time, but given that you have such experience with going on Fox, I mean, did you give her any advice about this interview beforehand?
I wasn't involved in her interview prep. What I will say is that, you know, one principle I try to remember that I thought she demonstrated is making sure not to allow them to kind of change the subject or the framing of the question at hand, right? The whole topic there was the fact that a candidate for president and a former U.S. president described the American people, the ones he disagreed with, as the enemy. And it's really important not to allow some sidestepping of that. So, you know, she did that. She also made sure to continue to get her point across, even when she was being repeatedly interrupted. As somebody who has a lot of batting practice myself on that network, really proud of how she represented her views, her values, and this ticket in front of a conservative audience. Something I might add, by the way, that is a show of strength. That is the exact opposite of the weakness that Donald Trump has demonstrated by pulling out of going even on CNBC, which is, you know, hardly a liberal bastion, or 60 Minutes, where it's customary for both candidates to go on. He's not prepared to go in front of a skeptical, let alone unfriendly audience. She demonstrated the opposite. And remember, this is in keeping with her continued outreach to conservatives. Look at the difference between her making clear that she would include Republicans in her cabinet, campaigning with so many Republicans, principal Republicans, who are for her, versus him referring to Democrats as the enemy.
Yeah, and there was one point in this interview where she was questioned about a position that she touted on the campaign trail in 2019 that was recently highlighted by CNN's K-File, I should note. It's her support for taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for prison inmates. And here's what she had to say about that tonight.
Are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law. And it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries
you know what, you got to take responsible for what happened in your administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in this presidency.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment
I will
surgeries?
follow the law, just as I think Donald Trump would say he did.
She didn't say what her position is on that or whether or not it's changed. She said she would continue to follow the law, pointing out what the Bureau of Prisons did when Donald Trump when he was in office. But from your view, do you think that she should have said what a Harris administration will do on this front?
I think she was wise to make clear that this is something that is a matter of law. I think there was a court order involved. And that's why you saw the Trump administration doing the same thing. But also, I think she's been very effective at not taking the bait on this. Look, this is all the Trump campaign wants to talk about, even though if you talk to the next 100 people you see on the street or in your life about the biggest things affecting their personal lives, the biggest things that are going to be at stake in this election that will shape whether the next years go well for them, like whether the goods and products we buy are affordable in the face of his proposed tariffs, whether their job is secure in the face of him proposing to eliminate some of the policies that are bringing back manufacturing in the Midwest, whether they're going to have personal freedoms in the face of the fact that every woman in America had the right to choose before Donald Trump became president, and then has lost it since he was president. Right? They don't want to talk about that, so they want to talk about this. And I think she very effectively put this issue in its place, which is an issue affecting a tiny number of people, and that has already been laid out by the law, a law that both administrations regulations have complied with, and get back to the issues that most Americans actually feel are affecting their everyday life.
Well, and that's a good point, that it's when you look at what voters care about and you ask them, it is not something that is at the top. We're talking economy, immigration, democracy, abortion. Those are the things that we've constantly seen consistently at the top. But this is something that the Trump campaign is highlighting. The quote where she's on camera talking about it and her position and saying, yes, she does believe this is something that should be offered. And they're running this, in critical states during football games. Clearly, it's not just about what all voters think. It's that tiny slice of moderate voters that she is trying to win over. Do you think it could have impact with them?
Well, yeah, they're certainly trying to make this election about anything but the issues that are affecting people's lives the most, right? He doesn't want to explain the fact that his tariffs are going to add thousands of dollars to the cost for a typical family. He doesn't want to defend the fact that he eliminated the right to choose, that, again, every woman in America had a national right to choose when he became president, and every woman in America now lives without a national right to choose because he took it away from them, right? That's the last thing that they want to talk about. So they'll talk about anything, whether it is this, whether it is people allegedly eating cats or dogs or geese, or anything else that he can change the subject to in order to try to divert from that. This campaign, and in particular the vice president, have been very disciplined and very effective at seeking to deny them the chance to change the subject like that.
Yeah, we'll see, obviously, with the voters thing. I do want to ask you what we heard from Senator J.D. Vance today, where he finally gave an answer on whether or not he thinks Donald Trump lost the election. I think unsurprisingly, he said, no, Trump did not. He said, quote, by the words that he himself, that Vance would use. It's a question he has dodged for several weeks now. What do you make of what he said tonight, saying, essentially denying that Donald Trump lost the election, that Donald Trump did lose?
Well, first of all, it's wrong, of course. Donald Trump lost. And I think he knows that. I think he's lying. I also think it's a mistake politically, because voters have a dim view of election deniers. And up until now, he's tried to avoid officially becoming an election denier by dodging the question, answering the question with the question, doing anything he could but give a straight answer. Now that he's given a straight answer, J.D. Vance is officially on the record as an election denier, something that is shameful, but also something that certainly if we look at 2022 and how pretty much anybody who was an election denier who was on the ballot in so many swing states, statewide races lost, I think that's something that's a setback. Now, he probably has no choice, because Donald Trump has probably demanded that he lie and that he say that. But look, one of the most profoundly important things in a democratic process is that when you lose an election, you say so. I mean, it's one of the most fundamental parts of how democracy works. It's no fun to lose an election. I know what it's like to lose an election, but you do it. It should go without saying. The fact that it didn't go without saying is one of the most disqualifying things that helps to explain why so many conservative Republicans are not just sitting this one out, but campaigning for Kamala Harris, even though they disagree with her on a lot of policies.
Well, also to say, in my words, I would not, it seemed a way to couch saying that he doesn't think Donald Trump lost the election, saying, in the words that I would use, no, he didn't. I mean, words are words, losses are losses, wins are wins. So that's, I think, the part that confused me the most in that answer.
Joe Biden won. Donald Trump lost. And anybody who cannot bring themselves to say that out loud, just the way I, as much as it pains me, will say Donald Trump won and Hillary Clinton lost the election back in 2016. If you can't say that, that is literally disqualifying for the vice presidency or the president.
On this note, thank you so much for joining me. They're done. We're done with them. Brandon here in the comments just sort of broke the news that MSNBC reported that Trump is trying to pay Stormy Daniels. So let's watch what happened.
I don't know why I am surprised that this is happening. I will admit to being a little bit bewildered by it, as well as a little bit shocked by it, even though none of us should be shocked by anything. But let me lay it out for you. So, as you mentioned, and as we all know, Trump was convicted earlier this year, 34 felonies, after he paid Stormy Daniels to be quiet. He paid her 11 days before the 2016 election to not talk about her, what she described as her unpleasant experience having sex with him. He paid her so voters would not know about that when they went to vote in 2016. Well, now we have just learned, we have reported out 20 days, here it is, 20 days before this election, we can report that he is once again trying to pay Stormy Daniels to be quiet ahead of this next election. Here's how we came to it.
Okay. And who is desperate? Who is desperate, right? Whenever you send out all those press releases that Kamala Harris is so desperate, she went on Fox News Entertainment Network. News used very loosely here. And so I'm certainly very glad to hear that. And let's dive into, guys, if you know where, because we're going live all at the same time. So if there is a resource and source, how they came up to it. But thank you for sharing that with me. You guys get bonus points. Wow. Yes, Eliza says, wow, I hope he gets prosecuted again. I mean, isn't that election interference? God Jesus, just watch the whole report from Rachel. Alexis, yes, thank you. Does he not learn again? And it just shows you how afraid he is of two things, really. First thing is losing the election, because if he were so sure that he would be winning, and he saw all those reports that it's a done deal, he would have immunity. He would not deal with it, right? So he's not certain. And second, how much he wants to avoid jail, right? It just shows you that he is certain that in this case, he will be prosecuted. On this note, I have contacted New York courts to cover the sentencing that will be in November. So it's all done, like you show up and then they pull letters and numbers. So it's done like weirdly. But we're going to see what's going to happen there. And certainly I'll take you with me if we're there. I want to hear how Lawrence reports on this later. Yes. So let's be quick. Okay. So we have a lot of news. I suddenly I'm in a good mood. I was starting in all this somber moment, but altogether, what I wanted to say today is what I would love to convey. You know how they say, don't listen to what people say, but watch what people do. Yeah. Now, when it comes to politics, unfortunately, a lot is done in the manner of words. And so we need to listen. We need to listen with a thought and the agenda, right? Let's listen to anything that I'm reporting on today in those actual news. And from now on, and let's focus on what is the intention behind this. Because if you listen to look for intention, you will start to understand politics. And you will start to understand policies also better. Policies are great. It sounds all fantastic. Now, certain moves, especially when it comes to international and global politics, so much is said without being voiced. And so I want us to focus on the intention behind it, right? And let's learn how to read through those messages. This is very, very important. And so the first thing that I wanted to start with today, in general, was today was the celebration of Ethel Kennedy's life, and she wanted that to be called Mrs. Robert Kennedy life. She wanted to refer to herself as Mrs. Robert Kennedy because she not just found her identity in him, but she wanted to preserve his legacy. Certainly, he passed away more than 50 years ago. I think it's 55. And so she demanded that to be called that way. And if you haven't watched the entire event, right, and all the speeches, I encourage you to do so. I do understand that it's a funeral and celebration of life, but the speeches were so heartwarming and touching and soulful, but also they had such dignity and such a message of humanity. And we saw her grandkids and grandkids and great-grandkids and many of them. And they spoke for a few sentences each. And they started saying, what do we need to focus on, right? Let's focus on climate change and on equality and equity. And it was amazing. to see what the next generation will be. And so, certainly, if you're a fan of Kennedy family or not, this was really an event that was an event of value, right? And the last speech was delivered by President Biden, and I encourage you to watch it. In terms of just to show respect towards the family, I'm not having clips because I don't want to make news out of it. It was a somber event, and a very respectful one. But if you can spend 10 minutes watching President Biden's eulogy, I highly encourage you to do so. He shares his journey, what does she meant to him, and the entire family, and how she comforted him when he lost his wife and daughter in the accident. And he was just 29. And so later on, when he became president, she wrote him a letter and said, "I'm so grateful." At that point, she passed at 96. So this was 4 years ago. She wrote him a handwritten letter saying, "I'm so grateful that the country is in great hands." And then she was very famous for putting those Valentine's cards together. And she would always feature herself and the current president. And so the last one was, of course, was Joe Biden. And it was him and her and all the hearts around. And she said, he's not a random Joe and all that stuff. So very sweet. Of course, 3 presidents were there. President Biden, as I mentioned, President Clinton, and former, of course, President Biden, President Clinton, now President Biden, former President Clinton, and Obama. Now, I have a clip. All 3 of them spoke. Also, there were such wonderful performances. Stevie Wonder, who was announced, but also a surprise performance by Sting. And so this is the program. And they featured both photographs, and they celebrated them both together. They featured America the Beautiful, and When the Saints Go Marching In, which was sung right after Joe Biden's speech. And then, of course, the program. And so in the program, of course, there were the famous members of the Kennedy family, her children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, but also former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. So I do have a video. I know how we all feel towards Nancy. And in this video, you're going to see how Joe Biden feels about Nancy Pelosi. I just got this video, so let's take a look. Because when we watched the broadcast, we saw her. Everybody greeted, Mr. President, Mr. President, Mr. President, Mrs. Pelosi, former Speaker. Biden didn't do that. He said, "Mr. President, and other wonderful members, dignity, whatever." So take a look when Pelosi addresses 3 presidents. Pay attention to Biden.
Again, Mr. President, Mr. President, Mr. President. How perfect for Ethel to have 3 great presidents of the United States speak with us. Mr. President, no reaction. I know you mentioned that Pelosi is a hero. Yes, she is a hero. But you know how it is with reputation. You can spend your entire life building it, and then you do one thing that sort of taints it. It's been just too recent. We will move on, and we will grow, out of this. It's just very recent, and so I want to acknowledge people's feelings. If you feel a certain way about Nancy Pelosi, as she was the one really headlining this Pass the Torch movement, and especially calling for an open election, which would have turned into, excuse my French, a shit show. So, on that regard, what was really sweet is Nancy Pelosi's speech. She was great friends with Ethel Kennedy. So I encourage you to watch it. It's really heartwarming. She mentioned how her father actually introduced young Nancy Pelosi to Kennedys, to JFK and to Ethel and Bobby Kennedy, So she finished her remarks by saying, "We prayed with Ethel as close friends. We prayed for Ethel as she fell ill. And now we pray to Ethel as she went to be with God." And so the kids, grandkids shared that, every morning, 8 a.m., everybody had to gather for a prayer. And just to realize this was a single mother who remained with 11 children. Her youngest daughter, Rory, spoke, who created this very wonderful documentary, and I commit to rewatching it. So it's a wonderful one, truly. She mentioned how it was to be the youngest child who would never see her father. And so it's a single mom at that point, raising kids, 11, and being the matriarch. And so, truly remarkable journey. Now, some of you have, rightfully so, noticed that RFK Jr. was missing. And RFK Jr. was not there. He was not in the building. He was not speaking. He was seen today in a tweet by Donald Trump Jr. because he went hunting with him today. I leave it at that. Next thing that I want to talk about is the hurricane relief, because we got more news on that regard. You guys discussing. I was very disappointed in her. That's about Pelosi. I agree, Callie. I mean, I share your opinion, and let's acknowledge everybody has a right to it. She was 6 months pregnant with Rory when Bobby was murdered. Exactly, Lisa. Yeah. And so she spoke that, it was so a bittersweet moment for her mom to realize that this is the child, my last child, but also the one that will never see the father, right? He missed his mother's funeral. Yeah, funeral. Yes, he was hunting with Donald Trump Jr. Okay, let's talk about hurricane relief, because I have a readout that is pretty important, not just because we're facing a lot of misinformation, disinformation, but really for us to know. So Biden-Harris administration has approved nearly $2 billion for hurricane response and recovery efforts following Hurricanes Helene and Milton. With around 8,000 federal personnel aiding local officials, over $1.8 billion has been allocated for individual assistance, public infrastructure repair, and essential needs. In North Carolina, over $100 million has been designated for more than 77,000 survivors. FEMA has approved over $911 million for Hurricane Helene and over $620 million for Hurricane Milton, providing substantial assistance across multiple states. The U.S. Small Business Administration has tentatively approved over $48 million in disaster loans. Disaster recovery centers are being established in impacted areas to assist survivors with applications and resources. Now, additionally, the USDA has announced food assistance eligibility for disaster-affected households and over $233 million in indemnities for agriculture producers impacted by Hurricane Helene. So, big news, big amount, just so whenever somebody confronts you with misinformation and disinformation, certainly, now you know better and you can confront it. So anytime I post on TikTok, it turns into some MAGAville. So it's always good to be, informed. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about is unions. There was a big announcement today that unionization petitions surged under Biden-Harris administration. So the National Labor Relations Board reported that union representation petitions have doubled under the Biden-Harris administration, marking the first significant increase in nearly 5 decades. In fiscal 2024, 3,286 petitions were filed, up from 1,638 in 2021, highlighting a notable resurgence in union activity following years of decline during the Trump administration, where petitions went down by 22%. President Biden emphasized that the rise reflects his administration's commitment to pro-worker policies, contrasting them with his predecessor's approach, which he characterized as favoring big corporations. The labor organizations, including AFL-CIO and Communications Workers of America, praised the administration's efforts, attributing the surge in union organizing to renewed recognition of the power of collective bargaining. Biden reiterated that strong unions benefit all workers and the economy as a whole, committing to further supporting labor rights and initiatives.
So also, I think an important, certainly important update, and very much contrasting that anything Trump stands for. And that's why the billionaires are investing so much money in it. And I have a readout in terms of their investment. But certainly, let's come back to Harris, because I want to talk about the campaign. There were some really good news about the Harris campaign as well. No surprise. Yes, Keith is not surprised about the, I guess, about the workers. Now, first, we just got, like, half hour ago, got a readout from Brian Fallon, who is the campaign communications director for Harris and Walz. And so he commented on the Fox interview. He says, quote, "I think there's a good number of independents and Haley-style Republicans who are very open to voting for VP Harris, and that's why we are open to doing events with Republicans and on Fox News." Is that an announcement of more events? I hope not, but we'll see. Continue it. We feel like we definitely achieved what we set out to achieve, in the sense that she was able to reach an audience that has probably been not exposed to arguments she's been making on the trail. And she also got to show her toughness in standing tall against a hostile interviewer. And that's exactly who Brett Baier was. Hostile interviewer. And I had such big hopes because he confronted Trump. I showed you the video yesterday where he said, you're not supported by VP, former Vice President Pence and all that kind of stuff. But I guess he wanted to have approval of this type of audience. Now, my question is, again, I asked you to focus on intention. My focus here is as to, if we guesstimate that the polls are right, which is, let's agree on that, it's a guesstimation. I don't think these are right, but let's assume it's 50-50. The next focus for the next 20 days is to get, between 1 and some percentage from Trump voters. Those who can be, I don't think they're undecided, but those who would be swayed, right? Those who with the ability to listen, right? Because you can only talk to somebody who wants to listen. I don't think this is the audience of Fox Entertainment Network. I don't think that. I think it's somewhere else. Obviously, Kamala Harris did a fabulous job. She had her pants on. She was straightforward. She was, when needed, she was aggressive. Yes, and it was needed, and it was great. Now, in terms of, is it going to change a Fox viewer's opinion? I don't think so. But let's see. I hope to be wrong on this regard. Let's check your comments real quick. I disagree. He was disrespectful and unprofessional, not hostile. Okay, that's your opinion. If she loses, mark my words, one of the reasons will be ignoring blue states, thinking they're a lock. That's an interesting point. Kelly says, I heard she wore her debate earrings and did a little hair flip. Oh, good. Oh, good. Lisa agrees with me. You can only hear if you want to. Fox News people do not want to hear from us. And I know the audience, right, pretty well. And I don't think there is communication. So let's see. Let's hope that I was wrong. And this is just my opinion. And everybody is certainly entitled to their own. Now, what I want to show you, it's a pretty good moment from her rally. Not today. Day before, where she not just spoke about Trump's hateful rhetoric, but she actually played a video compilation of his speeches. Take a look.
So here tonight, I will show you one example of Donald Trump's worldview and intentions. Please roll the clip.
The worst people are the enemies from within.
The enemy from within. Those people are more dangerous, the enemy from within, than Russia and China.
These people should be put in jail the way they talk about our judges and our justices. Now, if you had one really violent day, one rough hour, and I mean real rough.
I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
So you heard his words. You heard his words coming from him. He's talking about the enemy within Pennsylvania. He's talking about the enemy within our country, Pennsylvania. He's talking about that he considers anyone who doesn't support him or who will not bend to his will an enemy of our country. It's a serious issue. He is saying that he would use the military to go after them. Think about this. And we know who he would target. And we know who he would target because he has attacked them before. Journalists whose stories he doesn't like. Election officials who refuse to cheat by filling extra votes and finding extra votes for him. Judges who insist on following the law instead of bending to his will. This is among the reasons I believe so strongly that a second Trump term would be a huge risk for America and dangerous.
You know, I'm always not a fan of guesstimating what other people feel. Those feelings, you have to be in somebody's shoes, have somebody's experience, not just physically, but emotional experience, to know exactly how they respond to something. What I'm glad about is that what I showed you, as much as the Fox News interview, if you watch the original, right, not the cutout clips that they will present you from now up until January 20th, it showed me what she's capable of. And we haven't seen her, Kamala Harris. We know she's a prosecutor. We know she's tough, but we haven't seen this exact mode, if you will. And I'm glad I saw it. That's all I can speak for me. I'm glad I saw it. I'm a supporter. I'm glad I saw it. Right? I believed it. Now I saw it. So for that reason. Now, VP Harris joined a gaggle this morning with the press. And she addressed several key issues, and I want to read it out for you. So regarding Donald Trump's recent claim of being the father of IVF, okay, she found it quite bizarre. Quote, if what he meant is taking responsibility, well, then yeah, he should take responsibility for the fact that 1 in 3 women in America lives in a Trump abortion ban state. He should take responsibility for the disappointment and harm faced by couples hoping to grow their families as IVF treatments have been put at risk. His actions have been harmful to women and families in America, especially since hand-selected 3 members of United States Supreme Court who subsequently undid the protections of Roe v. Wade. Moreover, he has been trying to remove protections against pre-existing conditions for women, such as breast cancer survivors. So let's not be distracted by his choice of words. When asked about President Obama's comments regarding Black men, she expressed her pride in having his support, emphasizing, quote, I don't assume to have the vote of any demographic locked down. And that's the answer to feeling that the blue states are locked. On the topic of whether Trump should take a cognitive test, Harris reiterated her previous stance, saying, quote, based on my observations and those of many, Donald Trump is increasingly unstable, and as noted by those who worked closely with him, he is unfit to be president of the United States, end quote. Harris also restated her position on Taiwan, because we saw the drills. I covered the drills. We know the drill with the drills. Now, affirming her belief in the one China policy, we're recognizing Taiwan's right to defend itself. Lastly, regarding California Proposition 36, she said, I've not voted yet. I've actually not read it yet, but I'll let you know. So now, in terms of campaign, ahead of Trump's Univision Hall, which we will review, The Harris-Walz campaign held a press conference in Doral, Florida. I attended the press conference. It featured families affected by Trump's family separation policy and Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, the national co-chair of the campaign. For the first time, children spoke publicly about their traumatic experiences, recounting the horrors of being separated from their parents, confined in hieleras, cold holding cells, and subjected to inhumane treatment. They also expressed their fear of Trump being potentially reelected. And certainly you saw those who have experienced it saying, I'm physically afraid. And then they start crying hysterically, like, I'm physically afraid of Trump returning because I remember what happened to me, what happened to my family. It's traumatic, and it's very well possible to return. Like a good Democrat, I'm doing my best to toe the party line, but clearly 2016 shows me the ones in charge don't always get it right. I agree. She's right. I don't see a reason to quarterback Harris. Has had no major missteps with the way last time Hillary. Okay, you guys are discussing it. I'm not going to intervene. So now today there was an event organized by a Republican couple. And this event was country over party event. And in attendance, so Vice President delivered remarks there. And this was Harris-Walz campaign event at Washington Crossing Historic Park. And so speakers were, which I'm not going to show you, but the speakers were former Congressman Jim Greenwood from Republican from Pennsylvania, David Trott from Michigan, also Republican, Denver Riggleman, also Republican from Virginia, Mickey Edwards, Oklahoma, Chris Chase, Connecticut, Barbara Comstock, Virginia, former Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Duncan, former Trump administrative official Olivia Troy, and former Congressman Adam Kinzinger, of course, from Illinois. And in the program, this Republican couple, Bob and Christina Lung, Pennsylvania farmers have introduced Kamala Harris. And I want to show you the introduction because it shows us what goes through the head of a Republican that is able to hear, listen, and understand.
Never in a million years did either of us think that we'd be standing here supporting a Democrat. But we've had enough. We've had enough. And we've also noticed that Kamala is an amazing candidate in so many ways. But it's time to turn the page on Trump and his chaos and the way he divides us as people in this nation. We've got to move forward. We've got to elect someone who is in this fight for the working class people. And not trying to help her rich friends get richer or taking revenge on people that have slighted her in any way. We've got to elect someone who will take our Commonwealth forward and not backwards. There's more at stake in this election than any other election in my lifetime. And the choice for us and millions of Republicans across the country is simple. It's Kamala Harris. She's charting a new way forward.
And so first thing that Kamala Harris did, she pledged her support to Republicans.
And I have never wavered from upholding that oath. And this is a profound difference between Donald Trump and me. He, who violated the oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and make no mistake, he who, if given the chance, will violate it again.
Different clip, but let's hope this one will be right. She talked about the enemies from within. Take a look.
And to those who are watching, if you share that view,
no, let's try now again.
And now, Donald Trump is telling us how he intends to use power if he is elected again. He has stated that one of the biggest threats America faces is, quote, the enemy from within. The enemy from within. But know where that language harkens back to. Understand, and let us be clear about what he is saying. He considers any American who doesn't support him or bend to his will to be an enemy to our country. And further, he says that as commander-in-chief, he would use our military to go after them. Honestly, let that sink in.
And this is truth. This is not over-exaggerating, writing color to it. It's true. She's just literally quoting him. And I showed you a video, a compilation of his speeches. So whenever we watch today this Fox Entertainment Network where they played his excuses, and here I have to agree with Caitlin Collins. They played the excuses, not what he actually said. What kind of nonsense is that? That's a Fox disinformation entertainment network. So then finally she appealed to those Republicans who are thinking to vote for country above the party.
And to those who are watching, if you share that view, no matter your party, no matter who you voted for last time, there is a place for you in this campaign. The coalition we have built has room for everyone who is ready to turn the page on the chaos and instability of Donald Trump. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
Yeah, I was reading your comments. Now, what is coming up? Now, I announced to you yesterday that President Obama will be joining Tim Walz campaigning, that former President Obama, that former President Clinton is going to join Tim Walz campaigning. And now we have new news, like this football guy, the Swifties, Taylor Swift's boyfriend. They always say new news. Former First Lady Michelle Obama is heading to Atlanta on October 29th. 1 week before November 5th election, the event organized by When We All Vote, a nonpartisan civic engagement group she founded, aims to engage younger first-time voters. Now let's that sink in. So you were asking, now it is scheduled. And mind you, she's just not doing that type of stuff. She hates politics, but she's doing all this. All right. Obama and Waltz are going to be, yeah, indeed. I'm not going to read it, but yeah, Kelsey, exactly. The Kelsey. Yes. New news. That's the Kelsey. Yeah. The Queen. Yes, absolutely. All righty. Now, Brandon is informing us about Lawrence. So if you want to leave, that's fine. All right. So other news that I want to share with you is that over 150 prosecutors endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris and criticized Donald Trump. And it's pretty remarkable. I want to read it out to you. So today, over 150 prosecutors endorsed VP Harris, citing her strong record in tackling violent crime and protecting public safety. They criticized Donald Trump for his threat to the Constitution and his role in the largest murder spike in history. As former Republican DA Tori Verber Salazar stated, quote, Kamala Harris was an outstanding prosecutor. End quote. The prosecutors emphasized that America faces a choice between a dedicated public servant and a convicted felon. Quote, they declare, we choose the prosecutor. And so I really hope you choose the prosecutor too. Who doesn't choose a prosecutor certainly are the billionaires. Do I have to explain to you why? No, it's 2 words, tax cuts. In 3 months, 3 billionaires donated $220 million to Donald Trump. Democracy is literally how we can describe now our election, and democracy is being bought by oligarchs. Google Russia and what happened there, and that's what the future might be. So let's not get it twisted. Trump is insane. I'm sorry, but I put quotes. I put the exact words that he says, unedited videos, also transcripts. It sounds like, all of that has to be followed by a doctor's notice, like, okay, now this is the diagnosis, right? But there's JD Vance. Some of you agree with me that I know of, perhaps many of you don't, but I'm going to say it. There is that 25th Amendment that can very well be invoked once Trump serves his mission, gets past the election, and then JD Vance is that useful fella that can get the Project 2025 back on its feet. So think about it. He's backed up by the Musk and the troop. Now, recent reports submitted to a federal regulations reveal that some of the world's wealthiest individuals, including conservative donor Miriam Adelson and tech billionaire Musk, have contributed tens of millions of dollars to political groups in support of Trump. Musk, who ranks as the richest person globally, donated $75 million to pro-Trump super PAC to help establish over the summer, significantly boosting efforts to mobilize voters in critical battleground states. Adelson, a committed Trump supporter and heir to casino empire, surpassed that amount by donating to $95 million to another group advocating for former president. According to filings with the Federal Election Commission covering the 3 months ending September 30th, these 3 billionaires, Musk, Adelson, and Midwestern packaging magnate Richard Uihlein, collectively contributed around $220 million to organizations supporting Trump's candidacy within that period. And if we think that this is being done sort of like under the table and hidden, no, it's not. Look at this post by Musk on Twitter Shitter. Look at this. He says, tomorrow night through Monday, I will be giving a series of talks throughout Pennsylvania. If you'd like to attend one of my talks, there's no attendance fee. You just need to have signed our petition supporting free speech and right to bear arms and have voted in this election. And then he sends everybody to the super PAC. Now, let's put it up front. You don't need a petition to vote. Nobody needs this petition. He just needs your data. For what? What is that going forward to? What is that engagement farming thing? Where is it going? That maybe you will get like a fake ballot that you voted and then you didn't in case you go against Trump. What is going on? I reported on it. I went to his PAC's it was like Swamp the Vote or whatever website. I filled it out as if I'm from New York, Pennsylvania, Florida. You get all those different results. And ultimately, if you're from battleground state and swing state, you are not even connected to your state's website where you can request a ballot. It says, oh, the ballot will be on the way. Meanwhile, I put completely fake address. Nobody proved it. And ID number as 000, 9 zeros. And then it said, oh, the ballot is on the way. I put a Walmart address. So for that reason, my question is this. Let's not focus on how dare he. Let's ask a better question. Do we have a system? Why is the system not working? Where's the DOJ? And so when the system is failing us, When our president is intelligent, intellectual, and he doesn't want to, go low when they go low and hit them in the balls, then everything falls on these shoulders of voters. And so it is on us to go vote and to make sure your voice is heard and your vote is your voice, to quote Kamala Harris. Now let's talk about Vance. We listened to Caitlin Collins mentioning that he finally admitted that, in his opinion, Trump did not lose in 2020. So here's the clip.
Second question, what message do you think it sends to independent voters when you do not directly answer the question, did Donald Trump lose in 2020?
I think, sir, look. First of all, on the election of 2020, I've answered this question directly a million times. No, I think there are serious problems in 2020. So did Donald Trump lose the election? Not by the words that I would use.
Words that you will use? Do you have some special words in terms of crimes not having to do with our election? Yeah. JD Vance finally caved to the question since the debate. Exactly. DOJ sued Virginia the other day. They aren't completely oblivious. Also, Dems have Mark Elias. Yes, but also, where is our system? Why are we relying on Mark? Where is the DOJ? This is literally manipulating the election, paying folks $47 if you bring me a voter from the battleground state. This is what Musk is saying. And then if you prove yourself as a hard worker in this regard, you're going to make $30 an hour. And now you engaged. How is this okay? How is it possible? Why? With everything at stake, why? Now, in terms of why, Trump held a town hall yesterday on women's issues. I reported yesterday that before that, Kamala Harris's campaign, and Harris Walz's campaign, held a press briefing. There was the family of Amber Thurman, who passed away because she could not get treatment. So now will be a 12-second clip from Trump. When informed that the family of Amber Thurman, who died after being denied urgent care for an infection under Georgia's abortion ban, this family was speaking ahead of his town hall, former President Trump answered the following. Take a look.
Amber Thurman's family have come out on a press call, and they're doing what's called a pre-buttal 2-hour town hall right now.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah? And I want to
get better ratings, I promise.
Get better ratings? You promise? I don't want to be banned, so I'm not going to say what would have gotten the best ratings, but maybe we can all guesstimate it. Now, Trump said this about IVF. He mentioned Katie Britt, and so listen to how he learned what IVF is. That is so-called father of IVF.
I got a call from Katie Britt, a young, just a fantastically attractive person from Alabama. She's a senator. And she called me up like emergency, because an Alabama judge had ruled that the IVF clinics were illegal and they have to be closed down. A judge ruled. And she said, friends of mine came up to me and they were so angry. I didn't even know they were going, it's fertilization. I didn't know they were even involved in it. Nobody talks about it. They don't talk about it. But now that they can't do it, she said, I was attacked in a certain way. I was attacked. And I said, explain IVF very quickly. And within about 2 minutes, I understood it. I said, no, we're totally in favor of IVF.
Explain to me IVF real quick. I don't want to guesstimate, but I think Barron maybe had something to do with it. But let's move on. A Georgia voter who claimed by the organizers to be undecided asked a question about women's rights and that it's necessary to save our own lives. Now, why is government involved in women's basic rights? Listen to his answer.
Hello, Mr. President.
Hi.
My name is Pamela. I am from Cumming, Georgia, right here, and originally from Danville, California. So, facing the question of abortion, women are entitled to do what they want to and need to do with their bodies, including their unborn. That's on them, regardless of the circumstance. Some are necessary to save their own lives. Why is the government involved in women's basic rights?
Right. Good. I think it's great, and I'm glad you asked it. For 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart. Every legal scholar, the great ones, every lawyer, but the Democrats, the Republicans, the liberals, the conservatives, they wanted it brought out of the federal government.
First of all, good woman. It's former president. We have one. That's why recently, if you pay attention to my actual news, I added the president is doing this. The president is doing that. Some of you started commenting, do you mean Biden? Who else do you think I mean? Santa? Santa Claus? Maybe Scooby-Doo? Who is the president right now? Can we all answer? It's Mr. Joe Biden. He's the president. The only one right now. Others are former president. I covered Clinton Global Initiative for 2 days. No, not a single time I've heard anybody refer to Bill Clinton as Mr. President. Yeah, when they announced him and people stood up, of course, and show respect, yes. But in no way, Jose, somebody was like, hey, President Clinton, what are they president of? They are former presidents. We have the president, and that's Joseph Biden, until 12 p.m. on January 20th. Now, saying, oh, it's great, that was sort of this answer like to LeBron, right? Shut up and dribble. Listen, woman, your issue has divided the country for such a long time. So how about you just sit down, because thank God I just solved it. I overturned Roe v. Wade, and we're going to be living in a better world. Us white men in those lumpy schwampy suits with the Chinese tie, we like this. So how about you just take several seats and bear some children? If that's what you envision for America, well then. On tonight's Hall with Univision, that thankfully we didn't organize a watch party for, because I would have slammed this computer. Fox News was already enough. Remember how they said that Kamala Harris used teleprompter, and then it was proven that actually the host at Univision used the teleprompter. Now, I have a video of Trump actually factually using the teleprompter tonight at Univision. Just see he's reading.
Convicted murderers, people in jail, to come into our country. They released them from jail into our population.
He has to read that? He's saying that every freaking day. He has to read it. Really. He has a teleprompter to read it. There was a question for him. I don't want to show clips. There were some a lot of weird questions. At some point, gentleman asked a question in Spanish and said, do they really eat dogs and cats? Why do you say that immigrants eating dogs and cats? He's like, listen, they come here, they don't even speak English, so they're here to disturb us, he says to a guy who doesn't speak English. Then there was a question, and then he started the answer about cats and dogs that I was just saying what was reported, and eating other things too. They're not supposed to. So he was reporting about cats and dogs. They did not manifest this rumor, and they did not cause harm to those innocent, legal, mind you, immigrants. He just was reporting in news. News from where? From Trump Network or Truth Social? Is that the news you're reporting on? Anyway. Let's talk about Treasury. Comments. Jesus. Thank you, preach. Yes, we go to church every day. Until the election, we don't have to wait till Sunday. Every day is a Sunday. Caught red-handed with a teleprompter. Exactly. Freaking Cannibal, exactly. They eat other things too. Oh, I'm not going to even tell you, Lisa and everybody, what the Magaville is saying. Oh, they're eating babies, they're cooking babies, and the hands are sticking. The whole story. I'm not going to even repeat it. Yes, he's tone deaf, flabbergasting. They're all disgusting. Well, yes, Eliza, you summed it up. Moving on to Treasury. Now, U.S. Treasury targeted Hezbollah and Captagon trafficking network. A quick readout. U.S. Department of Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control has designated 3 individuals and 4 associated companies linked to Lebanon-based network that supports Hezbollah financial operations. This network generates millions in revenue, often facilitated by Iran. Additionally, 3 individuals involved in illegal production and trafficking of Captagon, a highly addictive amphetamine that benefits Bashar al-Assad's regime and Hezbollah, have also been sanctioned. The Captagon trade has become a billion-dollar illicit enterprise run by senior members of Syrian regime. So what we see here, long story short, in the newsletter, you're going to get all the readouts so you can understand what the whole scheme is. The point being is Hezbollah is everywhere. It's in Syria, it's in Iran, it's in Lebanon. So for Israel, love it or hate it, to defeat it, they have to strike them, and that means striking into Lebanon and striking into Syria, and removing those the octopus pretty much, which is Hezbollah. Same story applies for Hamas as well. Now, what they have not been doing is letting people deliver food and aid to Gaza, and so Secretary Blinken, together with Austin, wrote a letter addressing Israel. They wrote a letter to their counterparts, to Gallant and others, to say that you have 30 days to fix it, or we will stop sending you arms. Now, this is what the White House said today, Karine Jean-Pierre, in the meeting, in the briefing on that issue.
Does the White House have any response or concern about it?
Look, we've always said we've been concerned when we've always asked about other countries providing aid or assistance to Russia. We've been very clear about that. This is
wrong. This one. My clips today are all over because I downloaded one, but let's listen. We want to watch that one too. Oh, trust me, we're going to talk about Russia today.
Is there anything that we should know about the timing of this letter?
Yeah. So look, I'm going to take a step back just for a second because, and I know my colleagues over at National Security Council spoke to this, if not yesterday, certainly over the past couple of days. And look, the administration did something similar back in April, and that was received, that letter that we did back in April was received with a constructive response from the Israelis. And so this is very similar. What we have seen, the trigger, the reason why we're doing this is we have seen a decrease in aid, in very important critical aid into Gaza. And so we sent out the letter from obviously the Department of Defense and also the State Department that went to both secretaries' counterparts. And so we're having those discussions. I would speak to them. I would speak to the DOD and State Department on their timing, but it is certainly connected to what we have seen, which is a decrease of humanitarian aid in Gaza. And so we wanted to address that with Israel.
Now, Lisa asks, but isn't Israel hitting UN convoys as well? And here's the answer. 2 parts. What happens in Gaza, for instance, when why is it possible for Hamas to use people in Gaza as human shield? And why aren't people in Gaza protesting against it, right? Why aren't they storming, whatever capital, whatever they have? Why don't they surrender and ask the international community to intervene and free them from Hamas? Now, we have to dig all the way back. Time I worked as a diplomat advisor, political advisor at the UN, dealing with Middle Eastern issues, specifically Palestine. Palestine held elections in 2016 where Hamas won. Then they dismantled the entire constitution and put, applied the Sharia law and all that kind of stuff. So women became the whatever class citizens, and the entire system changed, so to speak. And they remained in power because they threw away the Constitution. There are no more elections, and so they own it. Now, they have money, which they don't give to people. Their lack of jobs and food and aid. So people are, so to speak, held hostage, right? In open air prison, so to speak. And so people were forced, or at least they decided to, send their members to work for Hamas. And so you can have a family where, let's say, mother has 3 sons, and 3 of them are working for Hamas. Their dad doesn't. Then they have little siblings. They do not work for Hamas. But because the elderly or the older kids are working for Hamas, they're not going to protest against Hamas because that's their sons, but they work for them. Now, people who work for Hamas, UN has been delivering a bunch of aid. Then Hamas instructed them to become UN employees, those who will help to deliver the aid within Gaza. Delivering aid to Gaza is half the deal. The biggest problem is distributing aid within Gaza because it goes to Hamas directly. And because these people who are now working for Hamas are also members of civilians, right? Civilian families. The families are not protesting, they are protecting Hamas because, again, all of it is now mixed within the families. So now the doctors who are doctors also work for Hamas, so they can make money. Drivers, right? And bunch of people. So they have the dual role. And that's why you see that Hamas is using civilians as human shields and they're not doing anything. And when you need to strike Hamas, you will be striking at the same time civilians, because why? It's the same family and they're protecting each other. So yes, innocent children, elderly, are passing because of this. But when you target a member who lives with a family full of innocent civilians, that's where you get to those numbers. The same story is here for the UN convoy. They work to distribute the aid within the Gaza. That's why we saw when the war started a year ago, when Israel started striking Gaza after October 7th last year, more than a year ago at this point, we saw UN people surrendering. Yeah, with UN Wests and everything. And we're like up to 20 people were sitting there surrendering. They had arms. They were armed. They had AR, rifles and whatnot. They had that from Hamas. And so it's very much complex at this point because people need to make money and live. So they work for Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization. It has to be targeted. They block the aid. And so all of it is a mishmash. So I think Keith asked the point, how can you fight them if it's like an octopus with a bunch of subordinates, right? If you have Hezbollah and then you have different parts in Syria and Lebanon and in Iran, all of it, you have to target the head of that octopus. That's why you see Israel killing the leader, right? One, they kill the leader. One is anointed a leader. They kill this guy and then this guy and this guy. So the last one, who's supposed to become a leader, was crying live on television and saying, I'm withdrawing. I don't want to be a leader. Please don't kill me. That was a week ago. Everybody was like having a laughing moment in politics because this guy was like, oh, please, please, please don't, right? And so Hezbollah, Taliban, Hamas, bunch of part of this octopus. But in order to defeat it, you have to strike the head. And so that's what they're doing. And it's very family related. You don't become a leader unless you're a family member. So until they get to the last one, they can't do anything with it. So for that reason, I'm not excusing Israel. I'm for Israel, but I'm not excusing Netanyahu. Netanyahu is being prosecuted for corruption in December. To avoid being prosecuted and going to jail, same as Donald Trump, he has to be in power, 1. And 2, there should be state of emergency, which is related to what? To war. For that reason, he extends the conflict. Now, Kamala Harris wins. It will be up to her to do this. because Biden with the 30-day extension thing, Israel fix it, whatever, he just extended it past election. So then the new coming, I understand that it will be transition period, but so the new coming administration would have a say what to do next. That's how I explain this 30-day extension. If Trump comes in and Netanyahu is best buds with him, who knows? Okay? So, true case of collateral damage, indeed. Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very complex. Now, I showed you a video and I encourage you to watch it. It's in one of those newsletters. By the way, I haven't even shown the newsletter. So subscribe. It's free. Get the actual news. It's really important. You will get also invited to our watch parties, to engage with like-minded people, to feel safe. If you're that blue dot in the red state or family even, there you can find community. Those folks who are commenting, we see each other. We saw each other 2 hours ago. So you do have a community. So go ahead, join onest.substack.com. You get your actual news and you'll find a community, right? Up until the election, you can join free, do whatnot. If you decide to support, I'm very grateful for you. And by the way, like and share and repost this video. It's about people being informed. It's not about gathering likes and views, people getting informed. Okay, so please share if you can. I would love it, and I would appreciate it. Now, let's talk about more international news now about North Korea. So, North Korean state media said on Wednesday around 1.4 million young people had applied to join or return to the army this week, blaming Seoul for a provocative drone incursion that had brought the tense situation to the brink of war. Now, North Korean regime is not to be trusted. I wouldn't trust them with what? Two things. Obviously, that it's provoked by South Korea, and second, that these people volunteered. I mean, imagine, right? If you get a knock on your door, you volunteer real fast and real proper. If your leader is Kim Jong-un, right? But the fact is, they gathered 1.4 million people within 1 week. What I want to remind you on, they talk about Seoul and all this BS that there's going to be a war with South Korea. No, they actually blew up yesterday, or day before yesterday, since the time change. They blew up the highways and the path into South Korea. So what kind of war are they talking about? Vladimir Putin signed the military cooperation deal with North Korea, pay attention, July 25th, 2023, year ago. On June 19th, 2024, now this year, they announced that North Korea and Russia shall, quote, shall immediately provide military and other assistance, end quote, to the other party if it, quote, falls into a state of war due to armed invasion from an individual or multiple states, end quote. Ukrainian territories occupied by Russia, which Russia claimed theirs, do fall under this term of invasion. Ukraine reports there are between 7 and 10,000 North Koreans in Ukraine being ready to go fight for Russia. Yesterday it was 3,000. Also, in the summer, Russia signed an agreement in May 14th, I think, 14th, 15th. Russia and China signed an agreement for military cooperation against their enemy, which is United States. It's written in the document. It's in Chinese and Russian. I can translate it for you. So from Ukrainian side and Institute of War, there might be another package of soldiers coming from China now. So when we speak about prohibiting World War III, we're in it. Missiles are coming from Iran, right? China is sending chips to produce drones in Russia. North Korea is sending people and missiles. So 3 countries have already physically united with Russia against Ukraine. Now, on this note, Vladimir Zelensky delivered today a speech to Verkhovna Rada, which is their parliament. You see him there in the middle, where he finally publicized and went public with the victory plan that he calls a plan, a framework for Ukraine's future. So I want to read it out. It's 5 points plus 3 annexes. Annexes are secret, but the first point calls for Ukraine's invitation to NATO. Zelensky emphasized that such an invitation could be fundamental for peace and signal to Russia that its geopolitical calculations have failed. Quote, determination on the NATO issue for Ukraine also means the inevitability of European integration for Ukraine and the fact that there is no alternative to democracy in Ukraine, end quote. So first thing, joining NATO. Second, point focuses on defense, outlining the need for irreversible strengthening against aggression. The President Zelensky noted a clear list of weapons necessary to sustain Ukraine's military strength, including further operations by the defense forces and strengthening Ukrainian positions. Quote, the defense point of the plan has a secret annex, and it is accessible only to those partners who have the appropriate military assistance capabilities, end quote. So this point is about providing equipment for long-range strikes. Third point is deterrence, proposing comprehensive non-nuclear strategic deterrence package to protect against Russian threats. So long story short, in the email you have a full readout. Long story short is what Israel has, the Iron Dome, so to speak. What is it? It's a combination of 3 defense systems that detect missiles, target them, and eliminate them. That's why you see all these things in the sky in Israel. So that's what Ukraine wants. Fourth point addresses Ukraine's strategic economic potential, proposing a special agreement for joint protection and investment in critical resources worth trillions of dollars, including uranium, titanium, lithium, graphite, and other strategically valuable resources. So what he says is we have a bunch of national resources. You can have a piece of it if you let us into NATO and you give us protection, simply put. Fifth point is security related, aimed at post-war period, where Zelensky, invites NATO to consider having Ukrainian forces replace, let's say, American forces where NATO is stationed. And he says it would be a great respect to Ukrainian heroes who are now well equipped, well trained, and ready. So it also has a secret annex. So whatever has to do with defense, it has a secret annex. So available, right? He has presented to US, to Italy, to France, to England, and whatnot, to everybody. But most importantly, to those key actors who can provide the long-range missiles and stuff like that. Now, President Biden today had a call with Zelensky. You might wonder, President Biden is flying tomorrow to Berlin, and Friday he's going to meet with Scholz, Bundeskanzler, and federal President Steinmeier, but he's not going to be meeting with Zelensky there. So President Biden spoke with Ukrainian President Zelensky to discuss ongoing U.S. support. He has announced that from this Presidential Drawdown Authority, so PDA, he's giving $421 million in security assistance. Now, additional munitions for National Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile Systems, NASAMS, RIM-7 missiles in support for air defense, Stinger anti-craft missiles, ammunition, air-to-ground munitions, small arms, high-mobility multi-purpose wheeled vehicles, javelins, demolition equipment and munitions, spare parts, and so on. Now, the interesting part of this announcement is that it's coming, quote, in the coming month, the United States will provide Ukraine with a range of additional capabilities, including hundreds of air defense interceptors, what I read out, all of which will help to equip Ukraine's armed forces in the coming month, which brings us post-election and post this term. God forbid Trump wins, he can prevent it. As to put it up, Frank, Ukraine is facing 10,000 North Koreans marching. They're near Kursk. Remember that incursion? The Ukrainians marched into Russia in Kursk? Near Kursk as those North Koreans. When asked whether the White House does know, if anything has been submitted or not, they said that we kind of don't. And here's a readout. White House briefing. When it comes to Berlin trip, President Biden will be discussing democracy and thank Scholz for returning detainees from Russia. Remember those unjustly detained in Russia? They're celebrating democracy in Berlin. No meeting with Zelensky. As a proof, here's a video from Corinne Jean-Pierre.
That they're not going to have an opportunity to meet while he is in Europe, and this is one of the reasons the president is calling him ahead of time.
Zelensky this morning expressed a huge hope that he's going to go to Berlin and have a talk because of all that North Korean / China situation, and absolutely canceled Ramstein, which I understand we had a hurricane, but our Secretary Austin could have flown to Frankfurt and Ramstein and meet and allocate aid and talk about it. But he didn't. I'm not sure how he was helping with Hurricane Milton and Helene, but it is what happened. Now, the meeting will be online in November. When in November? Nobody knows. Again, post-election. Allowing the next administration to have a word in it. Again, intention. We started with intention. Okay? Let's focus on that. When it came to long range, can Ukraine target anything in Russia? Meanwhile, as they're waiting on this aid, as they're waiting on anything, can they use anything to target? Here's the news.
The United States policy on that has not changed. It has not changed. But I think what's important here is that we are committed. We continue to be committed to Ukraine.
Yeah. No date on November Ramstein meeting. And then there was a question about, what is it? There's North Koreans in Ukraine. Here's what the White House has to say.
Does the White House have any response or concern about it?
Look, we've always said we've been concerned when we've always asked about other countries providing aid or assistance to Russia. We've been very clear about that. This is why the president took it very seriously on making sure that NATO was stronger.
Concerned. Zelensky stated that if North Korea will be joining the Russian efforts, that the war front will fall. And we'll see. There will be more news that I will be able to share tomorrow because they're under embargo, but don't keep your hopes up. So let's check your comments real quick. All of this is empty promise if Trump wins. Keith, yes. I want to see that. Do you think the U.S. is doing anything secretly to address the North Korean threat? I'm very hopeful it's just not disclosed. I don't think so. I don't think so because they're waiting who's going to win. Addressing North Korean threat has a possibility of a nuclear threat, right? Or an extension of war or involvement of NATO. Now, if Harris does not win, why would Biden mess with that, right? And if Trump comes in, he will handle it differently. If Harris comes in, then I think they will be addressing it. So they're waiting for election. I wonder if our intel is hearing signals of pending attack from North Korea. On who? On us? I don't think so. Concerned? What are we going to do about it? Yeah, it's concerned. We're concerned. Concerned. We're going to be... No, we're not going to do it. We're concerned. We're concerned. State Department also stated that Russia inviting North Korea to join just shows how desperate Russia is, and this is good news. Well, tell that to Ukrainians who are near Kursk. By the way, shall I break the news? Kursk is first target would be Kiev. Kyiv in Ukrainian. That's where Zelensky is. Speaking of assassination attempts, he had several actual assassination attempts. What did I tell you about striking the head of an octopus? Same applies to any war. Ukrainian soldiers, of course, they're monitoring. They're not, they're not aiming to take Russian territory. So they did the incursion in order to negotiate better. Now they have to take care of those people who Putin left. So they have to feed them and take care of them. That's what they're doing. That's awful. They're sacrificing. And exactly, a very, very pro-American country. I hope I'm wrong. I'm really stating it. I hope I have to come up live here on some day and say, guys, I was so wrong. I was full of poop. I'm so wrong. Everything is great. I hope to do it. Looking forward to it. Eating a crow. Actual. Yeah. Okay. We're coming to, it's 10:32 p.m. here. So let's end up, but on a good note, right? I always add those clips for the soul. Now, something good came from China, which are two pandas that are finally in DC. We had absolutely no pandas. They went extinct in the US, and so two were loans. A loan. They came from China, and they're now in DC Zoo. So take a look; they're pretty cool. So you see here a guy eating, and another one is hiding. It's a boy and a girl, and they're here. Names are Bao Li and King Bao. They're pandas. Arrived yesterday by FedEx from China. FedEx did the entire airplane with the little pandas on it. It was a big thing. And then they drove through DC. Everybody applauded. So if you're in DC area and you're looking to go in there, they're certainly the superstars and deservingly get their media blitz. So cute. Yes. Can't even type right now. Yeah. Trust me, I feel you. I'm trying to move on. Okay, something that will cheer you up. So, like Pumbaa and Timon, right? I can't mispronounce it because I grew up in Germany, so I pronounce everything German way. But there is a rare phenomenon that it has been noticed in a nature reserve in southern Africa, in Namibia, that Betsy the warthog and Jerry the meerkat have become friends. And so it literally looks like Pumbaa and Timon. So take a look.
Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. Hakuna Matata. Ain't no passing craze. It means no worries for the rest of your days. It's a problem-free philosophy. Hakuna Matata.
So they do exist. Miracles do happen. They do exist. So what I want us to do is to keep the faith. And again, focus on what's in your hands, right? You are informed about all this stuff. Now think about what can you influence. First and foremost, take care of you. When you're healthy, when you are well, mentally, physically, then you can do your best. Then you can be kind, you can take care of others, your family, and you can vote and do your thing. Jimmy Carter voted today in Georgia. He waited to turn 100 and vote, and he did. So do what's in your capacity. Talk to people who may listen. Don't talk to those who are like, closed up. And protect you, your environment, your happiness. You need to protect your happy. Okay? Be informed, but also protect your happy, right? And focus on what's in your hands. You can't fix North Korea and Ukraine, and thankfully, you're not there to physically be in charge fixing it. So we can say a prayer, we can keep the faith, we can stay informed, we can engage with like-minded people. So once again, join this thing on Substack.com. Get on watch parties. We're gonna watch on October 23rd. We're gonna watch the town hall with the CNN thing. So there's two town halls, 23rd and 28th, so with Kamala Harris. So we're gonna watch that. Tune in, consume actual news. Don't fall for the okey dokes and all this Trump stuff. And they're going to use this Harris thing interview today up until, January 20th. Don't pay attention. She's doing very well. She's very strong. She has it under control. Now, if we perform what we need to perform and we stay patient and we stay healthy and wealthy and fine, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Usually it works better than we guesstimate. So let's keep the faith and let's be positive. Okay? All right, Jack. Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Again, share it, like it, whatever you need to do. National treasure. Yeah, those the pandas. I appreciate this, but I'm clutching my Xanax. Like my life depends on it up until November 5th. Yes. Lisa, I feel you. Good night, Lisa and Kelly. Okay, you guys are onward to the finish line. Yes, Keith. Yes. Amen to that. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Eliza. Thank you to everybody who commented. Somebody was new who commented. I want to give you a thank you. That was a new picture that I saw. Stick with me. Jack. I saw Jack. Who was a new person? Daniel, thank you for commenting this. The tiniest. Thank you for commenting. I appreciate you. And everybody, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to see you tomorrow. Thank you, New Young City. I don't want to pronounce names because perhaps you're incognito. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. See you tomorrow for actual news. What is tomorrow? Thursday. Around 9 p.m. So that's where I'm going to be live. And up until then, keep your head on a swivel. Keep the faith. All right. Good night.